Well, you are also retweeting posts that were mocking JK Rowling for the idea of defining a woman by biological female traits. Um, but we've kind of, I mean, do you stand by that?
Yeah, that I stand by. Like, again, this is my duality here. Um, I do not like anything like yeah, I do not like what JK Rowling has to say, honestly,
Okay, well,
and
let me pull up that post that JK Rowling actually said. Being biologically female means having a body that is observably organized to produce large gametes, eggs, as opposed to a body organized to produce small gametes, sperm. A woman is female whether or not her eggs have been fertilized or not. A man can never be female. And that was in response to a post that said, your daily reminder that trans women are biological women. The term biological woman is made up by anti-science folk who want to other trans women. If you think that being female is strictly about the ability to get pregnant, you will invalidate cis women as well as many who aren't able to do so. So that was the original post that JK had responded to. Then you called her clinically stupid for that statement. What do you think? You stand by the idea that it's clinically stupid to define female by reproductive orientation and
I mean,
biology?
I don't deny biological sex exists or that reproductive biology is real. Humans are, that's just how human biology is. It's legitimate biological framework. I mean, where I disagree is that the idea that gametes alone settle that debate itself.
Well, I don't think JK Rowling thinks it's only that. And I think from what it sounds like earlier, you were saying that you don't deny biological sex exists, but you think you can actually change it.
I do. I mean, I think that again, this is what I think and how I believe is that yeah, you can through the hormones and through medical transitioning that I feel that I am a biological woman. I am biologically a female, even though I don't produce those
But you're
gametes.
not, though. You acknowledge you were born biologically male,
I
like
was
your
born biologically male. Yeah,
and your genetics are male.
I believe that's not my case.
You believe you're not genetically male because
No,
of taking hormones.
sorry. I believe I was born genetically male.
But are
Yes.
and you acknowledge you are still genetically male.
Reluctantly, yes, but I believe that I am I
See,
through
this is the issue. This feels way more like an emotional
I'm sorry, I'm
problem.
confused.
This seems more like an emotional problem, and I'm not trying to be mean because
no, and I'm
you
trying
seem
to
like a nice enough person, you really do, and so there's some debates where I could come on here and really, like, kinda be mean. I don't wanna do that here. I feel like this stems from something maybe a little bit deeper just with you. I'm not a therapist, but if I could kind of LARP as one for just a second, I think you have maybe an issue with integrating aspects of yourself and looking at yourself as a whole person. For me, I don't have an issue integrating the fact that I'm male into my view of myself and who I am as a person. My childhood, where I come from, and what I still am is a part of my journey, just like all of it is. And what's to come is a part of my journey. And I feel like when you sort of deny parts of who you are, whether it's your biological sex, whether it's things you may have done in your past, whether it's whatever, you can't deny reality because you end up living in a way that doesn't make sense. I mean, you yourself acknowledge that you have a cognitive dissonance on this issue. And if we have a cognitive dissonance, it means we're not seeing things clearly, which definitely means we can't go and argue for things clearly and coherently. It definitely means we can't go out there and suggest policy positions if you yourself admit you have a cognitive dissonance on how you see this issue. Does that make sense?
No, it does. I thank you. I appreciate that. Appreciate the feedback.
So I guess the final kind of subtopic on this issue
Mm.
before, and maybe we won't solve all the big picture debates today, but is that it just feels to me as somebody who does, you know, respect and support autonomy and freedom for trans individuals, particularly adults, that is very much not the motion or direction that things are going in at the moment, right? There's this very widespread backlash to trans people, activism, whatever you want, however you want to identify it or describe it. And to the extent that that backlash is kind of affecting just, adult trans people who want to live their lives, I don't support that or like that. But it does seem to me, and it's somewhat inevitable, that when you cling to the 20 side of the 80-20 issues, like the trans sports issue, that you're going to have that kind of backlash. So why is it that all the groups and even activists and even folks like yourself, Serena, can't just like give that ground up?
Fear of erasure, I would say, from how I view it. Like, I don't fear of being erased and not being able to do what you like and exist. I mean, it's one of those things where you spend your entire life in fear of what you are and who you are. And when you finally be able to accept it and, live your life and do what you like, it's one of those things that you wanna cling to every aspect of it. And it's
But
I mean, for me, it's difficult, and as Blair pointed out, for me, there is a I do have a lot of dissonance with it, and some people can do it better than others.
I just have to point out, and this is to be constructive.
Mhm.
You said that you lived your life in fear, and what was the other word you used in regards to how you saw yourself? Fear and denial of yourself?
Fear and denial.
Okay, and then you said, "But then you accept it and do what you wanna do." I don't feel like from this conversation and things that you've said that have been very illuminating about who you are and how you feel, I don't think you did cross that threshold of accepting yourself, because you still say that you have such a hard time
I still
acknowledging something as basic as your biological sex.
I
That doesn't
still have
sound
a
like
hard
an
time.
acceptance to me. That sounds like a refusal to integrate that part of yourself.
It's one of those things that I'm still working on. I'm gonna continue to work on to be able to accept that.
I guess
And that's honest.
that's
Yeah,
I
fair.
can
That's
appreciate
fair. But
that.
I guess what I
yeah.
would suggest is that I actually understand your fear of not being able to live your life and not being able to, if, presenting yourself in many ways as a woman is what will make you happiest in life. I support that for you. And obviously we have this backlash of like people some who would genuinely try to make that illegal or institutionalize you or something like that. And I don't support that, obviously. But I do think that the clinging to the most radical positions on this debate is the most likely thing that will lead to erasure,
Mhm.
right? Like will lead to public backlash. Because if you tell people that the two options are totally rejecting trans people or accepting biological males in women's sports, biologically male sex offenders in women's prisons, they're going to pick the totally rejecting trans people. Most people are.
Trans
And
kids.
correct. We live in a democratic society where we do have some degree of majority rules. So it's like if your alternative was let trans people live, accommodate the trans community in certain ways, and we will respect your boundaries and acknowledge biological reality in the instances where it is important. I mean, that I think could be a winning message. I don't think this can be a winning message, Serena.
You know, you're probably right, and I'm probably wrong. I mean, this is one of those things where we're holding on to something so hard, so ardently that it's gonna hurt more in the long run than in the short run.
Okay.
Well, then do you think you could see yourself going forward being a proponent in the opposite direction and actually telling other trans people and other trans activists, "Hey, we got this wrong. Trans women should not be in women's sports. Kids should not be transitioning." I guess we haven't even talked about that.
No. If the message is important, how we deliver that message would be important, and making sure that we ensure their psychological safety with that, saying, "Hey, sorry, this is how it has to be. We're not we're doing this to protect the sport itself, but this is just one aspect of everything else. You still have everything for you." I mean, again, it's all about the messaging.
Well,
But it's also not.
that's an interest. I mean, there's propaganda and there's messaging and there's the way that you say things, but I find that people on the left are always so much more focused on that, and they're focused on the way that you say things rather than like, okay, so you're sitting here saying you're kind of understanding you were wrong maybe on the trans athlete thing. So would that actually lead you to switch your position publicly and advocate against trans women being involved in women's sports, or at least leaving the debate altogether and stop, pushing for them to be in the sports? Because it really is those two kind of options. You either support it or you don't.
Yeah, I would support it. I would support saying trans women should be in the biological side of the sport. They should be in
Wait, in
What do
women
you
or
mean?
men's?
men's
Okay.
side. Yeah.
Well, hallelujah. There's a point. Now, I got to be honest, Serena. I fear you may exit this conversation and get back into the blue sky Twitter kind of trans rights activist echo chamber and maybe go back to your former position.
Here's the thing with my positions, and I'll make this abundantly clear. They do change, but if it makes sense from a holistic standpoint for the society as a whole, then that's where I land, and that's where I'll stay. And I'll gladly take the hate that I'm going to get for flipping on this issue from my community and my fellow trans men and women.
I think
It's
this is the first debate I've ever done where the person actually changed their mind oh
well,
my God, that's
well,
crazy.
well.
We
Here's
haven't talked about trans kids though. I don't know how we feel about that, but
okay. I mean,
this is Brad's show. I'm not going to steer it.
yeah,
I'm just saying
if
we might not
Brad,
agree on
this is your
everything.
show. How
if
do you want to do this?
I mean, is that something you stand on, Serena? That
Stand on.
like you are a hardcore believer that kids should transition, or no?
Oh God, no. I think kids need to be kids.
Okay. All right.
Here,
Well,
kids are always going to have a lot of questions, a lot of issues, and this is my stance on it, 100%.
well, welcome to the Blair White Army, Serena Munroe.
Wow.
Wait, you made a face.
You sound like me. What's going on?
I think kids should just. As a kid going through like my own dysphorias and issues, I wanted a therapist. In fact, I did a post on Twitter about this earlier. I wanted a therapist to talk about it. I didn't want to transition. I didn't know what it was. If kids have these issues and parents, I understand it's scary. It's a lot of unknowns, especially if you don't have any understanding of the trans community. Find a specialist to talk to and have a better understanding and have your kid.
I'm not sure I trust those specialists, but all of that could be a conversation for
That's a
another day.
that's a whole other thing.
Yes.
But
Well,
yeah.
I appreciate you guys coming together, having a conversation. I think we need more of that, including on these contentious and fraught issues. Thank you both so much for making the time and coming on the show.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having me.